What's good, wealth builders? It's the man, it's the myth, the wealth builder himself, Devon Put in Work Burke. And today we're talking about bond investing 101. Let's go.
To say that I'm on my grind is an understatement. Don't think I'm thinking you can check my bank statement. I'm about my money, yeah, that's a basic. World domination is what I'm truly facing.
Okay, before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we talk about making more money, saving more money, building a better you and business. So without further ado, let's get to the topic on hand. Bond investing 101. Okay, so buying bonds seems complicated for beginner investors. And no, in all honesty, it took me a while to wrap my head around the ins and outs of bonds and how to buy them and all that good stuff. So, with the right amount of research, you can definitely understand them too. Anyone can invest in bonds, all right? It doesn't matter who you are either, okay? You can be a broke college student to a rich businessman. Either way, you can invest in bonds. You can work for Walmart. You can work anywhere. You can be doing anything. As long as you're over 18, you can buy bonds or invest in bonds. Now, many financial advisors will suggest including bonds as a part of your investment portfolio. Okay? Now, a lot of them are not going to tell you how to do it. But this is because bonds have lower volatility, okay? And thanks to their lower risk, they can help lower the chances of losing money. Now, let's get started with the simple question. Where to start when buying bonds? Right? Where do you start? Where do you go? What do you do? What do you look for, right? Well, let's break it down. All right, so the process might seem a bit tricky when buying bonds for the first time. This is because a lot more is involved at the initial stages compared to other types of investments such as stocks. Okay, but don't worry because the Wealth Builders is here to show you how simple the process can actually be. All right, so there are 3 different ways to purchase bonds. Okay, the first one is buying bonds directly from the U.S. government, right? Directly from Uncle Sam. Like, give me your bonds, fam. Give it to me. You know what I'm saying? But seriously, you can access the Treasury Direct website and through the federal government's program, purchase your bonds. Now, this cuts out any broker or any middleman or anything like that, okay? All you do is simply open an account, log in, and then proceed to buy your bonds. But most likely you're gonna have to spend about $1,000 to get started that way, okay? Some of them you can do $100, but definitely you're gonna have to spend a little bit more than buying them through another way. But I'm gonna give you the link in the description anyway. Now, number 2, buying bonds via a broker. Now, a second way to buy bonds is through a broker. Now, you will open an account with the broker and proceed to buy the bonds. Keep in mind that you will be purchasing from other investors looking to sell their bonds, so you might have to pay a premium for certain bonds, that are actually worth something. All right, so keep that in mind. Next up, number 3, buying bonds via an exchange traded fund, aka an ETF. An ETF lets you diversify your investment portfolio by purchasing bonds from many different companies. The bonds can be short-term, medium-term, and long-term. One of the main benefits of buying bonds via an ETF is you can buy in short increments, all right? You don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars to buy a bond. Now, there's a few things you got to consider when buying bonds. Not all bonds are the same, okay? Not all bonds are the same. Some offer more risk than others do. So here comes the question. How do you make the right choice when investing in bonds, right? How do you? Well, it's the Wealth Builders. You know I'm going to give you the ways to watch, the things to watch out for, right? Number one, you want to watch out for and make sure the issuer can pay the bonds. It is paramount that the bond issuer, whether a company, government, or municipality, can pay the bonds and the interest. After all, if the borrower is at high risk of default, there is no reason why smart investors should buy their bonds. With a bit of investigation, you can find out the creditworthiness of the bond issuer. The best and easiest way to do this is to access the websites of independent agencies that rate bonds. Some of the most reliable agencies include Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch Rating. Okay, I'll have all those links down below. And the most creditworthy issuers and bonds are given the highest rating, AAA, okay? This rating goes down from there. It'll go down to AA to 1A and all that good stuff, okay? Now, the higher the rating, the more creditworthy the issuer and the lower the interest rate. All right, so keep that in mind. Number two, choosing corporate bonds. See now, the best way to rate a company's bonds is to consider the income of the company and then compare this with how much the company is willing to pay in interest. If the company is not doing well financially, it is more likely to eventually default. And you can access this information from the most recent income statement, where you will compare the annual operating income and interest expense. Okay? You can find the income statement either on the company website or on the Edgar database. That's EDGAR database. Now, keep in mind that the operating income is not the net income. The latter factors out interest expenses, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, number three, choosing government bonds. Now, with government bonds, it's a bit harder to evaluate and perform a risk assessment as you would with corporate bonds. This is because governments don't have huge revenues that would give you an impression of their stability. With that said, U.S. Treasury bonds are considered to have the lowest level of default. They are so reliable that they are deemed risk-free bonds. So, you know, just to get your foot wet or your feet wet, you might want to check out the U.S. Treasury bonds, all right? Now, number four, how to choose municipal bonds. Now, the second best option as far as creditworthiness of the bond issuers goes is the municipality bonds and municipal bonds, okay? Now, one way to evaluate municipal bonds is on the Electric Municipal Market Access site called EMMA. Okay, here you can find the credit rating. And you can also see if there have been recent defaults with their previously issued bonds and get a feel of the government's ability to pay both interest and principal. Now, the question is, when is the right time to buy bonds, right? Can you time it? Can you time it? Now, this is a major question you should ask yourself when buying bonds, is whether this is the right time. When a bond issuer issues bonds to investors, they have already set the prices and the interest rates. However, this is not where things end. The prevailing interest rates will have an effect on the bond prices as well. Now, during economic boom times, the prevailing interest rates rise, which in turn pushes down the bond prices. However, when the economy begins to slow down, interest rates go down, which then pushes up the bond prices. It is simple for any investor with this information to try and predict the best time to buy bonds, which is when the prevailing interest rates are high. However, trying to predict the market is not a good way to invest in bonds. Instead, it is much better to buy multiple bonds that mature across several years. This helps to diversify the risks in the interest rates. The downside of this method, called laddering, is that it may eventually lower the yield as well. Now, that brings up the question, which are the best bonds to buy, right? Now, you need to choose the type of bonds that are best to include in your portfolio. What works for one investor may not be ideal or good for the next investor, okay? You will need to assess your risk tolerance as well as your income requirements, okay? Because sometimes more risk, more reward, but some people are not able to deal with that risk. Some people can't really stand the fact that they're most likely going to lose their money, okay? You can't be in too many high risk situations. But a good way to diversify your portfolio is to include U.S. Treasury bonds, municipal bonds, as well as corporate bonds. This will help you even out the interest rate risks and the default of principal risk. The downside of this is that you may need a lot of cash because bonds are usually sold in, like I said before, $1,000 increments. With that said, you can get over this problem if you do not have a lot of cash by purchasing what? Bond ETFs. Okay, so either way you slice it, you can invest in multiple bonds on apps like Stash App and I believe Robinhood, okay? But I know for a fact, Stash App, you can actually purchase bonds through Stash App, through ETFs on Stash App. The link will be down below if you want to check it out, all right? So thanks for watching. Thanks for being a subscriber. Thanks for being a wealth builder, because it's the man, it's the myth, the wealth builder himself. Devon put in work. Burke signing off for Bond Investing 101. All right, and if you want to learn how to make more money and save more money and build more wealth, check the wealthbuildersystem.com. Put your email information in and get on our email list. That's so we can email you when the Wealth Builder System actually goes live. Until next time, Wealth Builders, it's the man, it's the myth, the wealth builder himself, Devon put in work. Burke signing off for Bonds Investing 101. Do remember, wealth builders, make more, save more, build more.